Only if I would fit tonight.
Well, I almost.
When I lived in England, I only had a bicycle, so we could only buy one which fit in our
Hey,
pants.
guys,
Oh, no.
are you recording? All right, we'll get this meeting started. 6:30, call this regular select board meeting to order. Additions and deletions to the agenda. Hopefully deletions, if not. Additions.
No changes that I got.
I thought there was a last second other business, but I don't think so. We do have a long agenda, so I hope we can try to stay on topic as much as we can, please. So with no additions or deletions, this is now the time for public comment. This is for anything that's not already on the agenda this evening. Is there any public comment? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which is the May 6th regular meeting minutes. We've got some liquor licenses, warrants, and there's no access permits.
So I do have a couple additions in the attendees. I forgot to send notes on people that were attended in person, and I can tell you person, yes. Those were Greg Johnson, Peter Johnston, Jim Yasmin. For present, but we're on the minutes.
With those couple of small changes, is there a motion to the minutes, I should say? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Sure.
There's a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Carries. So moving right along, rec board appointment. So got Danielle, right? You can jump up on the table here and tell us a little about yourself and why you want to join the rec board and anything about you.
Sure. So I'm Danielle. I actually live in Fairfax, but I spend a lot of time over here. I teach fitness classes over at the Cambridge Community Center. I have for almost 8 years now. We also moved our camp over here last summer at the Cambridge Community Center. So I spent a lot of time over here making connections with families and community members. And that's kind of my background is programming, events, fundraising. And so I want to come over and help do that. I'm friends with Amanda. And so she said the spot was open. And so I jumped on board.
Just suckered you in.
I wanted to.
Anybody have any questions for Danielle?
not for Danielle, but maybe for you. Is that okay? Somebody who's not a resident?
I don't think that there's any restrictions on that, but
Not on committees.
no, it's not an elected position.
Okay.
And it's not a, what do I want to call it? Like a DRB or, I'm struggling to think of.
That's okay. I know what you're saying. Mhm.
A decision-making body, for lack of a better descriptor, maybe, but, so, no, I don't think. I think conservation might have, a Fletcher, a Fairfax resident, I think,
Okay.
or used to, perhaps.
Oh, it's great. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing this.
Oops.
Real eventful interview.
And break.
Yeah.
With the trip.
All right.
Do you know what position whose position this was for, by chance?
It was for, I believe, Jesse Jacobs.
Is Abby still on?
Yes, Abby was our newest.
So it's Abby, Bonnie, Leslie, Amanda,
Bonnie is gone.
so that's fabulous.
Yeah, Abby replaced.
All right, so, hearing no other discussion, All those in favor of appointing Danielle?
Somebody make a motion.
Oh, I didn't. No, there would be a motion.
Danielle.
I was more trying to not screw up her last name.
It's okay. Rothy.
Rothy?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to appoint Danielle Rothy
Yeah.
to the rec board?
Second.
And that is a two-year term? Two-year term. Is there a
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion now? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night. Good luck. I hope it goes smooth.
Peter, you're up next.
I am, okay.
Very similar.
Similar, no, I'm not in the break board though.
Bill will, yes, so. You're interested in joining the town meeting advisory ad hoc committee?
That is correct.
All right, well, let us know, what is your interest in?
Well, I've been in Cambridge a little over 50 years now, so I've been attending town meetings for a while. And I've always enjoyed them. I think they're important. I know we have to change. So I wanted to get involved in the change of it, try to keep tradition and get a little bit of technology involved in it. I do have a background in technology, so I felt I would be comfortable in that. That's it.
Okay, and you've been at a meeting or two already anyways.
I've been already a couple of weeks in that, so.
Yeah. Okay, and this was for, Sam Lotto stepped down at the last year.
I'm taking a position, but I'm not taking Sam's position. I think Dave has got that one now.
Yeah,
Okay, that was well said.
Well, I've been on other boards, so I understand. Where it comes from.
any other questions for?
Mr. Ben, thank you for everything you do in town there.
Oh,
So
great.
Okay, so there'll be a motion in order to appoint Peter Upshup to the town meeting modernization ad hoc advisory committee.
So, seconded.
And this is just, these are yearly appointments till the committee's disbanded, or yeah. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
And one more set of appointments this evening. So Lamoille FiberNet CUD. We appoint every year, we have to appoint a member, a Cambridge representative for the CUD and an alternate. I don't know if the alternate's required, but last year it was Sam Lotto was the representative, with the alternate being Matt McCabe. I think so you say his name. They're both willing to run. They asked if they needed to be here, and we didn't have anybody else apply or interested, so figured they're continuing. They've been on for the last few years anyways, so there'd be a motion in order to appoint, authorize the chair to sign this appointment, resolution, renewing the participation for Sam Lotto to be our representative and to Matt McCabe to be the alternate to Lamoille FiberNet Communications Union District.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? There. Elected. Appointed. Guess I didn't say, I guess, Donna, you're supposed to sign this too. I didn't, let's see that. Next, Melody Tobin. This is, for the church. I can't remember which one it is, but.
Jeff.
Jeff Church, every year requests, or most years requests a coin drop, over in Cambridge Village. So this is nothing new, but it's always a request, and they have paperwork and stuff they fill out with V-Trans because it's in a state highway. And you put in touch with all that, Eric, right? She's got all that information.
Yeah, she's a veteran, she has them all figured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just need our permission to proceed with retrans.
Yeah, basically just a, kind of, get rid of it.
Yeah. So, all those, is there a motion to approve the coin drop request for the Jet Church?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Any further discussion?
Holiday, anything on that would affect traffic?
They won't approve it if there is.
Oh, right. Perfect.
Yeah, so any further discussion? Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Motion carries. Moving right along. So now we're at the silo field tree planting and maintenance plan. Are you Tori? Perfect. You can join us at the table. So there is some attachments and stuff in the packet. I think it's those, but
Okay, I did print some handouts. I don't know if I printed enough.
that's okay. I have my computer here too.
I'll take one.
The chunkier one is some background on other planning that has happened in the area, and this one is part of what was submitted for a grant application. I don't know the word.
Never mind. You got plenty.
So thanks for having me here tonight to talk about, a tree planting at the Silo Park that was brought up briefly in the overview of the Greenway scoping study at your previous select board meeting. Just a bit of background, that some of you may recall back in 2020, 2021, LCPC and the town and other project partners helped draft a long-term management plan for the Silo Park and envisioned that space being a gateway into the community and that could also be, in addition to being like a community space, a place that could manage stormwater in the village. And that is mentioned a little bit in the packet that has the big circle on it. And so this unique funding opportunity came up through the ARPA funding pool. The Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission offered community tree planting grants. And the village of Jeffersonville applied for it, was awarded a tree planting grant for about $25,000 and got funding to plant 32 trees on the property. Kate Lally from LCPC was a part of the drafting of the long-term management plan and also helped put together this grant application and consulted with Du Bois and King during the scoping study process and came up with a planting plan that would work with one of the alternatives for the space. So in the smaller packet, you can kind of see how the potential planting has been laid out. The grant includes a budget for the 32 trees, as mentioned, as well as some watering bags and small budget for actual planting too. And some next steps for the project include getting a section 11 permit to plant some of the trees along the state highway. And there's some 3-year maintenance expectations for the trees as well. So I just wanted to come and share the project with all of you.
What's that mean? 3-year maintenance?
The tree should live for 3 years and need to be watered, make sure they don't die.
And after 3 years?
Then there's no expectation to replace the tree if they should perish. So.
Huh.
At the last meeting on this, about the scoping study, I heard you all say that you liked how they had broken it down into little bite-sized chunks of things that could be accomplished.
Mhm.
And so this is one thing that's already here.
Accomplishable.
And hopefully will happen this fall. But I just wanted to, share the project with you all and see if it'd be possible for LCPC as the project manager to continue working with the Trails Committee or possibly Conservation Commission to participate in the planting and watering and maintenance for the next few years.
I would suggest the Trails Committee because we were part of that. The Du Bois and King study, if you will. So, and. What I would like to do is. Have somebody or Liam here in town. Do a. Presentation or, another drawing of how parking would work and how parking would exit. Off of this. And also where the farmer's market would go, because that's something that we've decided we cannot have people walking across. By the silo or by the roundabout. We want to make sure that both of those things can happen in this plan. I like the tents and so forth would be on the backside of trees, so you'd walk through the trees to get to the farmer's market tents and so forth and divide it off the parking. I just want to make sure that's the most efficient way of parking also.
Yep, the trees planted along the highway are supposed to help with like screening sound and dust and all that. And then the trees on the backside of the property are also helping just fill in, create additional privacy, screening with the property owners. Yeah. There's only a few in the middle that also work around that flood chute and some contaminated caps sort of.
Just, I do believe that we do need to have an exit strategy for parking that goes to Depot Street as well. So it just needs to consider that as well.
So I see there's the 14,768. What is that the total of the grant? Is that, or what is that? Yeah,
That's the budget is for trees.
okay. I'm trying to figure out the money, I guess. So the village of Jeffersonville applied for this grant.
Yep.
And they're handling it soup to nuts. Minus the maintenance. Is
Yeah,
that how I figured?
yeah, there's no budget for maintenance in this grant. This is just for the planting.
Right,
Um,
but there's no, other than, it sounds like the ask tonight is whether the town would. They'd want, I guess, it sounds like are we supportive of this project? And then two, it sounds like, are we willing to sign up for the 3-year maintenance? So it sounds like.
Yep.
But there's no, other than that, there's no ask for other funds from the town. It's village,
the whole planting itself is covered.
Yeah.
So,
but there's no like match or anything.
It's very similar to when we built the train playground and the Cambridge Junction trailhead. But there's 20-year commitment from the town that the town has probably forgotten about. But we have to maintain that for 20 years.
so this summer, or, future seasons could continue like this and be super rainy and there might not be a strict, like robust watering need, but it's hard to say. So having some volunteers on board to keep an eye on things or a budget for beautification committee, perhaps.
We have there's a group from Middlebury that actually plants the wildflowers for us, and I say us, the village. And so we've had to water that in the past anyway. We have the fire hydrant right there and we can get the fire department to give us some old fire hoses. That would be very helpful in doing that water.
Yes, water.
Um. So do we need a motion here to agree to some type of commitment? Is it, or is this just more of an FYI or what are we?
Um, I would like a motion to authorize LCPC to work with the Cambridge Trails Committee in partnership with the Jeffersonville trustees on the Silo Park tree planting.
And has the Trails Committee agreed to help with this maintenance?
Actually, I'm not absolutely sure, but I'm sure we will.
But I sent this all to Laird. I have not heard from Laird about it, but he's aware of the other stuff.
Right. Confident that we can handle this. Mainly because I've been handling it right along
Yeah.
personally, so
Mhm.
if you lose me,
Anybody's guess.
So here's my. I'm gonna dip below the line here a little. It's my little frustration. That the beautification project asks for funding to help with some plantings in Jeffersonville and in Cambridge Village. Does the village of Jeffersonville contribute to that? And we've asked multiple times.
I'm not sure about the asking part.
I know a few years ago, we asked them to contribute something because they are working on beautifying, the roundabout here in Jeffersonville. I don't know if they have anything else in the village here, but
oh yeah, no, there's hanging pots on all the,
yeah, I know there's some in Cambridge Village.
both of them.
And I almost think Cambridge Village puts some money towards it, or at least lets them use the water or something.
I'm not sure. That seems to be much there. I don't.
So it's just a little bit frustrating.
I'm
That they get the grant, they're asking us to do the maintenance.
pretty sure Karen fills up on the fire hydrant down by the community.
They maybe should has it.
Yeah.
I have no problem if the Trails Committee is committed to doing this. I have no problem with it. It's just optics.
I agree. It's a little odd that we had nothing to do with the grant and, and the people who asked for the money, received the money, are gonna do it, aren't willing to do the maintenance. Like, that's a little odd to me.
The village of Jeffersonville,
The trustees or whoever proceeded for it.
they're barely, sorry, I won't say anything negative here, but there's not a chance.
They they have one part-time staff member and just recommended I check in with you all in your deep bench of committees and volunteers. Where the property is like a central.
I get it, but I just feel like it's something I have to mention because I know that there's been frustration, but. About other villages chipping in a little. Making the villages look pretty. But if the Trails Committee is committed, then I have no issue with this.
Do this contingent on Laird responding and see as the chair, I don't want to usurp this.
And if there's a pick up an appointment, we'll reconvene.
So I guess there would be a motion in order to have the Trails Committee, barring no objections from the committee, be responsible for the 3-year maintenance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Can we word that we will ask the Trails Committee if they would do it?
Sure.
So they have full option.
How about this? Well, could you propose a motion?
I will propose, I propose a motion that we request the Trails Committee consider doing a 3-year maintenance on this beautiful tree project. But if they say no, that's, people we're asking have a right to say no.
And we can reconvene if they do so.
Okay.
Is there a motion just that? Is there a second to that motion?
I would, but I've already put a second on another motion previously. Just want to make
We'll
sure that
ignore
that
it.
is.
We'll ignore that one.
Okay. Yes.
Friendly.
Any further discussion? Peter, will you double check with Laird on that?
When it's we're done,
Just let, yeah, let Eric and I know, but, there's no other discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye, opposed, abstained. Nothing carried. So, hearing back from Laird that he hates us all, I think you got your answer.
Well, we can consider to some under the budget, because this will all be for maintenance starting next year, correct?
Yeah.
So maybe the trails committee needs to consider
just an adjustment to
something
trails.
oh, that's a good idea.
to help offset the.
Cause when would they do this fall, probably?
Like you said,
These
the
are
rains.
professionals that all that money is putting the trees in the ground and getting them a good start.
Mhm.
It's, all the trails committee has to do is make sure they're watered, right?
And if, usually if another company plants it, you get a 1-year warranty.
Guaranteed.
Or, yeah.
Okay, that'll help.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for.
Nice to
See
see
ya.
you again. I didn't recognize you at first, and I was saying, I know that.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Yeah. So we are cruising through things.
Let's keep going.
So, but
Slow down.
here's, so I know one of the candidates, the next one is the health officer interviews. We're like a half hour early. We have one here.
We could start with one and then jump to after if the other two don't show up.
Okay. I didn't know if, unless Mark is willing, I don't wanna make you sit here for a little longer. if you
I'm
want.
willing to do whatever.
Cause I don't, if one of the other, I know one said they couldn't make it tonight. One's not gonna be there.
Right.
Did you hear from the third one?
I sent everyone the agenda. And.
Or we could, it's up to you all, but we could talk to Mark for a minute, and then if the other one comes, we could always do another one a little bit later, if that's
Sure.
okay. So, all right, why don't we do that?
All right,
Mark, come on up.
I reckon. The next contestant. I was just gonna say, Mark, come on.
Or some interviewer.
I just didn't wanna goofy out there. All right, I'm staring at that light. It's like a
It's-
flashbulb.
It's blinding.
I know.
We're working on doing some changes, so that'll be, hopefully coming soon.
No worries. That's a public health hazard.
Yeah, so town health officer, so
So-
you'd like to join?
Well,
speak.
yeah, I'm the deputy.
Yep.
So that means I didn't get shot. Yeah, Don's resigned. I've been the deputy town health officer for 6 years now. Very familiar with what the position entails. I've kind of been a bit of a behind the scenes town health officer in that Don hasn't been able to do things lately like get into houses, go upstairs, that sort of thing. So I've been doing a lot of investigating, writing a lot of the reports and turning them in for Don's signature. So I'm very aware of what the position entails. I don't know what you want to ask me.
Well, I guess, how long have you been doing the deputy thing again?
It'll be 6 years. It'll be 6 years.
Okay.
I think my deputy runs out August 30th of this year. I first got it in 2019.
Yeah.
So,
And you feel like cause we didn't have, well, I think 6 years, I would have just started on the select board. But prior to then, we did not have a deputy town health officer.
right. The deputy town health officer position is mainly to be there if the town health officer is not present. Like the town health officer is sick or out of town. The other main duty is to be a second person so that we're not going into homes by ourselves. It's always better to go with two.
That was one of the main reasons I remember Don's ask
Yes.
initially was
Yeah.
just having a second, call it witness, or just backup, if you will.
It's a safety thing.
Yeah.
You know, anytime you have a position where you're going into people's homes, especially where it could turn adversarial. So think that's another reason I think I'm a good candidate for the position, in that I deal well with people who are adversarial. My background is in social work. And I have never run into a situation where anyone turned on me, got angry with me, threw me out. I've always been able to show people that I'm willing to listen. What else can I say? Maybe I could talk about what might be different.
Okay.
I think I would keep tighter records. I think I would consider being a little more, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, because aggressive sounds too aggressive. But to I think be a little bit more active in terms of, if I see something, to do a lot more follow-up in terms of trying to make sure that orders that I'm giving get carried out. And there are methods for doing that. And one thing I'm keenly aware of is that if it gets to things like that, then I would have to work closely with the select board. Because ultimately, the select board and the town health officers are the board of health.
Board, yeah. For that.
Can you come up with an example where that would be something you can be as,
Okay, so we had a case a couple of years ago where we were called in because they didn't have adequate water in the house. They're renters. And so I said, show me. Turned on the water ran like normal for about 15 seconds. And then it was just a little dribble. So needless to say, you can't wash dishes, you can't shower, toilets won't flush. And we wrote up the report and gave a copy of the report to the person who was complaining, gave a copy of the report to the landlord, told the landlord what had to be fixed, what had to be done, by when. That was essentially my role in it. I firsthand did the investigation. I firsthand wrote the report. I gave it to Don, and I think I would have followed up on it more aggressively had the responsibility been mine, but the responsibility wasn't mine. And
like you would have checked in 30 days and
I would have
said,
checked
is it
in.
remedied? Or-
Yep, I might have then gotten more stern with the landlord, that sort of thing. So there's just one example.
Yes. That's a good one. Thank you.
Obviously you applied, you're willing to serve, and
I am willing to serve. What did they say in John Wick?
I guess, we do have a couple other candidates.
Yep.
So if for whatever reason we decided to go with a different candidate for the THO position, would you be still willing to serve on as a deputy?
Yes. Yes, it's I had to think about whether I actually wanted to apply for the position or not. It's most of the time there's nothing, but when there is something, it's serious and it's legal. And so, that's it can be a little bit of stress.
So you've been 6 years, so you lived through the pandemic as
I
a
did,
deputy
yes.
health officer.
Yes.
And was it your responsibility when you saw people not wearing masks in public places? Did you have to do anything like? No, not,
No, that
Well, we never had a.
that was really politics. Yeah, I really try to identify what's actionable and what's political. And I try to stay away from what I think is political, and masks got politicized for whatever reason, right or wrong. That's the way it was. And so it became a whole other thing. Now, had the town done something, had there been an ordinance that was there to be enforced, then yes, I would have done my best to do it. What I did do was I personally wore a mask, probably longer than I needed to. And I should say that I have never had COVID.
oh, Still out there.
Good for you. I'm one of the only people I know. So, you know,
And like this measles thing, this measles outbreak in the nation,
yeah. Well,
would that go through you at all? Like,
it might. It all depends on what the health department would ask of us. We have a contact at the health department. The health department sends us things, like right now, we're getting information on ticks.
okay,
Okay, so if I were to be appointed, then I would consider doing something like at the Varnum on tick education, that sort of thing. So we get various things that are seasonal. There are various trainings, online trainings, that you can go to. And I would do more of those if I was the actual town health officer.
okay.
Most of my experience has been experiential.
The duties are established. State statutes as well.
Yeah, I read over them and it seemed like it was public health.
Yes, it's public health, and that's another thing is differentiating between what's public health and what's private health. You know, what's something that's going to affect the public versus what is let's say, a landlord-tenant dispute.
Mhm.
Or what's a private health matter. In the water case, the person was renting. So would be appropriate for me to talk to the landlord. If the water situation if the people own their own house, then I would have nothing to say about it. It's their house. If they don't want to have water, they don't have to have water.
It'd be unlikely you would ever know if they owned the property.
Correct. What I might know is if, for instance, they didn't have sewage, and then a complaint would come in, and then that would be an area where the town would step in.
Just asking the process. Wasn't here for the last meeting. Are we gonna decide this tonight?
So, oh, yeah, that's a good point. So what we were gonna do is interview the candidates. One can't make it this evening. And then what we're gonna do is, at the end of the meeting, we're gonna go in executive session, and we're gonna discuss it. Just, privately, out of respect. And then we'll make a decision and we'll notify the candidates tomorrow. About our decision. So, is there anything else for Mark?
Thank you, Mark,
Thank you.
for doing this
My pleasure.
Again, Mark.
and all the other things you do.
Well, I figure I do a lot of it for myself. I think that by doing things, I feel like I stay relevant instead of becoming a retired, doddering old man who has to listen to. So someday I'll be that, but that's more of an aspiration.
Gosh, that sounded good, actually.
Yes, it does.
Are you Nicole by chance? Good. You're here to interview about the town health officer. So come on up to the table. Come on.
Hi, my name is Nicole Corbin Farrell.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Hi, Nicole.
Thank you.
So obviously you saw the post and you
Yeah.
replied and, I just, kind of explained, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested, what makes you qualified and.
Well, I don't
anything
know,
relevant.
about qualification, because as I read about it, it's more of like a learning experience and a hands-on thing. But I did own my own business for 16 years. It was a convenience store slash gas station, so I dealt a lot with the public, good and bad. I dealt a lot with the state. I had to deal with, the, federal government with our gas station and making sure everything was good. We did water testing. We had a deli. We did all of that stuff as well. So I'm comfortable working with the state on many things. I'm comfortable with the public. Like I said, the good and the bad. Some situations will be, as Mark said, stressful. But the way you handle them and the way you talk to the people and make it out to be not their fault and just try to help them out, I think it's huge on how to resolve the situation in a calm manner. We don't need to raise voices, and they will escalate, but you can help them, let them know that it's okay. We understand what's going on. We're all here to work together to resolve the situation. So that's what we had to do a lot.
Any questions for Joel?
Other, you know, the service station,
Mhm.
quick stop, I take it kind of business.
Yeah.
What other things have you done that would give you knowledge about how to deal with this job?
Well, I looked online and I did the research on the health officer on the website, the Muncie website. And a lot of it is learning hands-on, learning as you go. You might not have the experience, but you will learn from and then
Sure.
having a deputy or having somebody who has the knowledge to learn from as well. I think is a good way of learning. I think a lot of it's gonna be hands up. That's what it was for our store as well. We didn't know what we were doing. We just kind of jumped into it.
Jumped in, like,
And I think you learn really well that way as well.
So do you live locally, and just tell us a little?
Yeah, I live in Underhill. I live off Bill Cook, so I'm like 12 minutes away. I have a farm at my house. I raise chickens and I have bees, turkeys, donkeys, goats, stuff like that. Right now, we also have a business where, we own a property management company as well. We sold our store on 2020, December of 20. And then we just kind of took it easy for a little bit because we worked 7 days a week. So working different schedules, working different hours doesn't bother me. So yeah, we took a little bit of a break and we bought a place in Puerto Rico. So we have an Airbnb that we do over in Puerto Rico as well. And yeah, and we just do property management here as well.
Angela, did you have a question?
Just like medical background, but it doesn't sound like you have any medical,
No,
no.
I have a question.
sure.
Can you think of, I mean, unfortunately, the town health officer sometimes has to deal with some, less than desirable situations, perhaps. That can be somewhat confrontational sometimes. Or people are unwilling to work with you.
Mhm.
Maybe they don't agree with the situation,
Right.
but I think it's just unfortunately part of why we have the town health officer. Do you have any examples of, having to deal with difficult situations and how you might handle yourself in such a situation?
Sure, I was, somebody threatened, well, they didn't threaten, they tried to rob us, at one point, and that was with me. And so you try to de-escalate the situation as best you can. And then you talk them down or something, and then you have to involve the police or whatever I'm sure there's protocols in place and steps you need to take. You give them the benefit of the doubt, you work with them at first. If that doesn't work, then you tell them this is what needs to be done. If that doesn't happen, then there's other steps in place to resolve the situation, whether it be good or bad. You have to follow the protocol of how to do it. So in my case, I talked to them, it didn't work, so we called the police
Yeah.
and they were gone by then, but we ended up catching up.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Can you describe one of those situations you know about? Less than desirable situation?
Um, It's hard to describe a situation that's, not going to, I'm trying to think of, well, I'm
Would
trying to
it-
think
is
of
it
privacy, not
anonymity?
a
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
There's currently one active one that's very contentious, but not because of. Well, there's an active one that I don't really want to mention because it would be very obvious.
That's okay.
We did have a dog bite one of my first years here. And there's a whole separate section of town health officer ordinance about dog bites.
Okay.
That was a person that was running on a town road and the dog jumped off the porch and came out and in the road and bit this young lady. And from what I recall, the owners of the dog were, very, they felt extremely bad. And I remember them feeling, responsible. And, but I think they worked very well with us to try to make it right. However, I can imagine that same situation doesn't always go that way.
Right.
Um, so it could have very well gone in a very different direction.
And what is a health officer's role in that?
So I believe that essentially they take the charge of the investigation. There's, I mean, in a dog bite, there's literally a manual, the big book of wolf. That VLCT
Okay.
put together
Okay,
of everything you go down through, but they're kind of like the lead detectives.
so they're sort of called after the event. The person gets health care. They're like, they know where they were running, they know where they were
Yeah.
bit. And they're like, that dog in that
Yeah.
house, and then the health officer starts the
Yeah,
investigation.
and Mark alluded to, there's the town board of health, which is the health officer, the select board. I think the deputy, I'm trying to think if there's another person that's on that. The town clerk's on that or not. I don't remember, but basically. So if there's also, that's, they come together for a vicious dog hearing, but also if there's a complaint and somebody, like Mark gave an example about somebody didn't have water.
Mhm.
And then landlord said, no, they've got plenty of water, and it kind of escalates, then it could escalate to a board of health meeting, which would involve the
Okay.
select board. And we discuss it, and I'm guessing it goes, if it gets appealed from there, then it goes to the next level, the state Department of Health or whatever, but.
Okay.
Which would have also happened in the dog bite instance, if it didn't get dealt with here at the town level, it would have gotten escalated to the next level.
So you feel up for that?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I feel like, it was an accident, and if somebody felt like the dog, you check to make sure the dog has had the rabies. If they don't, you have to quarantine the dog. There's levels of, but I feel like you can make it so that you're not attacking the owner for
Gotcha.
something. It's just, it could have been an accident. And if it happens again with the same dog, then the owner needs to figure out a way to keep the dog contained. And those are things you can just talk to the owner about, like, let's figure out a solution to this, because now we're on, going in that direction. I think if you make it so that you're working with somebody and trying to help them in the way, you can get, it would be a lot easier that way, yeah.
And we did, roughly, I guess, 6 years ago, appoint a deputy health officer in this town, which is not a required position, but it's certainly available. And I thought it was a good idea then, because a lot of these situations do warrant a second person, just, for safety reasons, for, having a second set of eyes type of thing. So that being said, assuming there is a deputy available, but would you be comfortable going to people's homes to inquire some, about some public health issues,
Would I be by myself?
either by yourself or
with a
obviously
deputy?
with a deputy?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you assess the situation. If you go in or you knocking on the door and somebody's already aggressive and you're by yourself as a woman, you might just take a step back and say, okay, you know what? This probably isn't a good situation for either of us.
That's
Let's next time figure out a more neutral place and talk and have another person there. I mean, I think it'd be best to assess it, even though.
Sure.
I have a question just about how you, so I heard Mark say something about just record keeping and how important it is. What is your system for documentation? Like, do you use your phone? Are you more of a typer?
I do it all. So I have my phone, my notes on everything is in there, but I also like to have like a physical paper, for our business with the gas station. Every 3 years you get audited by the state, and you have to have your record keeping like for every single day. You have to have the gallons that you sold, the gallons that, and make sure it matches what it's called a beater route, make sure they all match. And if they don't, you get infractions and you can get fined very heavily. You can get shut down for all that. And, for the whole time we were there for the 16 years, we never had an infraction and they always said that my record keeping was good because I'm a little ADHD about that stuff.
That's great.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Any further questions for Nicole?
Well, and
Yeah.
he, does Mark get paid for this job? Excuse my ignorance.
Yes, yes, there is a stipend, an annual stipend. We're gonna talk about that on the next topic.
So does that affect your decision whether you do this or not, what you're gonna get paid?
What exactly I'm gonna get paid will, I mean, I would guess I would see
It's a
what it is.
stipend, it's like us, we, you get a certain amount a
Mhm.
year, and that's
That's it.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
The hours are variable, but the.
The money is the
money's
same.
the same. Oh,
some days are good and some days, yeah.
exactly, so, I just want
Yeah.
you to understand and make
That's-
sure.
Yeah, that's valid. Glad you brought it up. I didn't even.
Yeah, I
know
guess, do you have questions?
Yeah,
that. What is the hours? Like, are they flexible? Like, I guess what I'm saying is like, sometimes you get called out in the evening. Are you responsible to be here for the meetings that happen?
So
And as
it's
well?
really dependent on what's out there, so, there could be months of nothing.
Mhm,
And there could be a ton of stuff in a week.
mhm,
So it could be almost any hour of any day of the week.
mhm.
You know, coming to these meetings isn't really necessary unless there is a public health topic.
Mhm.
Obviously at the beginning of COVID, Don and Mark were in here in here or on Zoom, almost every single meeting, because we talked about the pandemic and everything there, so that's for both positions total.
Do you spend a lot of time in Puerto Rico?
Not a lot, but I do spend time in Puerto Rico, yes. Yeah,
So the deputy, you just have to work that out with the deputy.
yeah.
because in the budget, there's the $4,500 for,
I believe it's 3,000 for the THO and 1,500 for the deputy. Sorry, it's both in the office. Being the little more responsibility for the primary position.
And that's a month.
That's for the year, the annual stipend. So it's either,
It's not a moneymaker.
that's why I'm bringing this up.
Good to know.
yeah, and
And the budget has, okay, so $3,000 for the main person. There's nothing in there for mileage or anything like that, I take it.
Just a miscellaneous.
Missile.
yeah, no, and I don't know what we've done in the past for Don and Mark, but, if they've submitted mileage or. Not that I know of any. Yeah, I mean, I honestly
It's another thankless
Could've-
public service.
could have asked Mark when he was here, but as far as like the approximate number of calls a year, I had no clue. Honestly, because we really only hear about them when they become a problem. And the amount of ones that have become a problem here are probably like, in my 6 years, there's maybe 3
Mhm.
that I can think of off the top of my head. And it's probably not even the one still ongoing, but.
If you have questions, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but talking to Mark might be a good idea for you to best understand what you're getting involved with here. And I guess the last question that I have is basically, would you be interested in the deputy position?
Yeah, I just think it'd be really interesting. And that's really the reason why I applied, is just because I think it would be interesting to get to know the community. I'm not that far away from it. On Bill Cook, it's literally right down the road.
That's part of Cambridge and on one end, Bill Cook.
Yeah, yeah. And then I live off of like literally Downs Road, so you're right there. I thought it was Cambridge when we first moved there, so, yeah. I do have
Can't
a
get there
question.
from here.
You can. When the flooding happens, so, and then what does that entail with the health officer, like when the flooding, is the health officer part of that?
Well,
How
that's
does
a
that go?
good person to answer that question right
And
there
it's a
at
good
the
question.
table.
In the past, I have not had to utilize them for anything. If the health officers did get involved in something else, it was in time afterwards if there was a health concern, but they've never reported anything to me in the past either.
So Danny's the emergency management director as well as being on the select board. So he's in a unique dual role. I could envision though, after a flooding event, if, mold or something were to come up.
There was,
then
I was just, you said you've dealt with 3 in your 6 years, and I was in 13 years as EMD. I've had one incident where I had the health officer came to me about a concern that I had to address or helped him address, but took the reins on it and resolved and taken care of it. But yes, there can be a role. It's depending on what the situation is. During a flooding event where we've had major situation going on, as still the emergency management director of everything that's going on at that point, whether it's the emergency itself or it's the recovery side of it, or wherever you are in that, depends on what the timeline is. There has been some involvement and we've worked together on only one that I know of that I can remember anyway. If there was any in the past before me or not, I don't know. It's an easy teamwork approach and to resolve the situations, yes.
So when there's like a boil the water notice, that is something you take care of, or is that the health officer that does that?
Well,
you have
uniquely
that
enough, the
situation?
boil notice is the village. The town of Cambridge doesn't own any water systems.
Okay.
So the village of Jeffersonville owns this water system here. And the village of Cambridge owns the water system.
But they do contact me when there is a boil water
Okay.
notice. I've had to ask them to do that, but they do that now. Contact me, so we'll get stuff out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the village of Jeffersonville has its own little governance, which is not us.
Oh, okay.
They have trustees.
Well, actually, they both do.
Both.
Right.
Most villages do.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often confusing.
Town, 2 villages within.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that was really good.
Any other questions for us?
No, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, well, at the end of the meeting, we're gonna have a little time to discuss amongst ourselves and
Okay.
we'll let the candidates know about
Okay,
it tomorrow.
great, thank you so much, I
Thank you.
appreciate it, nice meeting you
Thanks
guys.
for coming in.
Thank you.
Like I said earlier, the third candidate wasn't, she emailed and said that she wasn't be able to come tonight. And then I don't know if Steve is planning to come tonight or not, but
He told me he'd log on.
Oh.
Remotely.
okay. So I suggest we'll just keep moving on and when he comes in, we can kind of circle back.
And Steve was the guy with the tons of experience.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next topic is kind of related to this. So Don Lange put in for, his the semi-annual, stipend. It's a little weird because the state obviously operates on a fiscal year basis, July 1 to June 30th. We don't here in the town. We operate calendar year. So we're appointing this position to start essentially in the middle of the year, our fiscal year. So I didn't want to authorize paying Dawn for the first 6 months of this year, without making sure we were all on the same page. Because we budget for the whole year and he has served for the last few months. So there is an argument to be made that he's owed his half of the annual salary.
In his term, on the state website, Jessica showed me, it is 5/31, not
Okay.
6/30 like I.
Oh.
So it's almost fulfilled a full term within a few days, so.
So I was of the inclination to authorize paying him that. But I didn't feel comfortable enough making that decision on my own without mentioning it to you all. Because select board stipends are basically, you work for January and February for free. If you don't get reelected, you don't get paid for the year.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, because
Didn't know that, did ya?
that did come up a few years ago.
Yeah.
With a different person who asked for their part of their fee, their.
The
stipend.
1/6 of the year, sure.
Sorry, but that's not how that works. This is a little different. It's a little bit closer to half the year, so it sounds like in years past, we've split it up semi-annually. So I feel like we need to follow that for this position.
And he's still doing the job until June 30th.
No, he's done now.
So wouldn't he
This
get
week.
prorated from January to whenever he put his resignation in?
It was 16 days
Shy of 6 months?
shy of being the full term. So.
So we thought- Okay.
More the point why I didn't just want to make this decision.
Oh, yeah.
So. I guess I'm,
You just want a nod from all of us, or you have?
well, if everyone's okay with.
It's a dumb question, not good at all. 16 days away from full term, but when did he give his resignation?
May 13th.
Well, he gave it and then said he would do it up until that day.
Yeah, he gave it
Oh,
in April.
okay,
We've known about it.
That's what I thought it was
Yeah.
before that. That's why.
No, he gave us a bunch of
I
notice.
meant there.
I don't know.
What a crazy individual to give a month's notice. Who does that? So I guess if we're fine doing the 1,500, I'm okay with it. I just wanna make sure you all are okay with it.
There's no doubt.
Okay. Is that enough direction? Yeah. Okay, moving on. Steve, thank you for joining us. We were a little ahead of schedule, but we're fine with that. So thank you for being able to join us.
Yes,
So we're, yeah, obviously, you said you're interested in the town health officer position. So, we've got a couple candidates that have also, other candidates, and we've heard from a couple. And yeah, so let us, please tell us about yourself, why you're interested, why you're qualified, and anything, really.
well, I'm interested because I have a strong interest in public health. Always have. I kind of feel like this is the next step after being the EMS chief for several years. I know some of the players. I know Dan. I'm also a trained EMD as well, so I know I can work, with Dan easily. Qualifications, I have a master's in public health and emergency and disaster management. I have a master's in nursing and community public health. And I've just applied for my doctorate in public health. So I just have this thing for public health. I think, I think it's about taking care of the community, and it's working with all the players in town. It's working with Dan, it's working with CARES, it's working with the food shelf. And how do we collectively take care of the community as a whole, take care of our residents? For me, that's the most important piece.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Do you have a sense of what this role is currently?
Only from looking at the state website and looking at some of the duties of the public health officer. So from that perspective, I have a sense, and I always put, there's always that caveat that's in there about her other duties as assigned. I figure that comes up as depending on what the town, the select board may need.
Well, the reason I ask is because that's where I got my information also. And it seems very different what these people actually do. Than what that website sort of alluded to. So, like dog bites and sort of sanitary situations for people.
Mhm.
Seems like they walk into people's homes and they try to help people, individuals.
Which very
Okay.
much, sanitation very much falls within a whole public health spectrum, which when you go back, again, public health geek, I'm currently reading the history of public health for fun. It's kind of really where public health got its start, was in the whole sanitation role. So I look at that as part of the, how do we, if we're going into somebody's home, what is it that they need? Why are they having a hard time? Maybe it's, this is where we need to get, Cambridge CARES involved to help them with something, or maybe I need to go to the select board and say, hey, here's an issue. What resources do you have that can help? So I think, you can come up with bullet points of what the job actually is, but it's gotta be fine tuned to that individual person. And then hopefully out of the whole deal, to actually sit down and come up with a Cambridge Town Health Officer manual, Bible, whatever you want to call it, about here's the job, here are the duties, here are the resources, here's how we can, how this person can actually work within the town.
Excellent.
Steve, question for you, sir. I know you're still working. How available will you be for on a daily basis for things that come up, just out of curiosity?
I think it depends what it is. If it's something I physically need to go do versus something to be handled by a phone call. The current job, I work a week, I'm off a week. I just finished my nurse practitioner program, so I'm hoping to, get credentialed and start working as an NP. So it really comes down to, what's the detail of the job? And, or I saw that there's currently a deputy public health officer. Is that something that I can reach out to that person and say, hey, here's what I'm finding. Do you think you could go handle this, work jointly with that person? Or even if it's just to make a phone call to, say it's the person with sanitation issues, to call them and say, hey, this is who I am. Here's what's going on. Can I come meet you at this date? Really it's a case by case.
Thank you.
You mentioned the deputy position, which is one of my questions. So the current deputy health officer has also applied for this position. So there's conceivably, a second position that could be available in the deputy position. Is that something you would consider if we were to head down that route as a deputy town health officer?
Yes. I have expressed interest in the public health officer position for many, many years now. So if this is a way to be able to start to get involved with the town a little bit differently and started in that role, sure.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions for Steve? Any last comments, Steve?
I don't
Or
think so.
questions? So, what we're gonna do is, at the end of our meeting, we're gonna have a little executive session. We're gonna discuss all the candidates and the options, and we should come to a conclusion by the end, hopefully, by the end of the meeting, and we'll let you all know tomorrow our decision.
Sounds great.
All right, cool. Thank you very much for
Thank you,
joining us,
Steve.
Steve.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. All right, so moving on, Crush Preserve. Was anybody gonna join us this evening for this topic?
Were we gonna talk about compensation?
Oh, we just did the hearing.
We did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was anybody gonna join us?
I believe so.
Yes,
Okay,
I thought.
so
so
should
too.
we, move on?
I would do
Okay.
how far ahead are we?
We're 20,
Okay,
you were like.
we're doing good.
We're doing well.
We're doing good.
you were like 5 minutes ahead.
Uh,
Let's keep going.
Danny, can we talk about the LEMPA thing?
No. LENP, Multiple Emergency Management. Plan. This is all a refresher to everyone else, because other than Angela. So we have to provide to the state every year this municipal management plan, and basically it's a list of what we have for resources in town to address any emergency, but the state, it gives the state an opportunity to see what everybody has. And they used to say that they kept some sort of database of it. They finally, this year, this typically has to be done and submitted to the state by May 1st, but they extended it into June this year because the state finally got a particular format. They wanted every town to do it in a particular format. So they assign individuals within the state to meet in certain areas with each individuals, EMDs from each town. And so everything has all been submitted just the way they want it done. It gets provided to the board for approval of everything that we have in here. I will tell you that The only thing that I left open, and I'll give you my reasoning for it afterwards, is the town health officer. I left it blank and highlighted need to fill position. One of the things that with using the state's format, as soon as it goes into effect June 7th, we will then, as EMDs, have access to update throughout the year as things change now. So I chose to leave it blank. I was gonna put a name in, but it was, to me, there was no sense of doing that. Just leave it. If something comes up in town, in the state hears something, they're gonna call the EMD anyway to find out where do we go with this, what route we take. So it's a bunch of information of what we have in town for resources, what do I want to say, and phone numbers, contacts and such, and it needs the board's approval so that I can send it out to the state.
This board's,
This board's
Okay.
approval. I have to sign it and Cody needs to sign it.
Yeah, we do this every year. I just noticed there isn't a spot for a deputy town health officer. Are those buckets stipulated by the state?
No, well, it is, yes, but, I don't have a problem adding one in. Again, that's the
You're gonna
option.
go on.
That was the goal, is being able to get everything in the same format. So if we want to add or delete things on our own, and it is in that spot of places that we can add and delete things. So yes, I could certainly add one on,
Let me help.
which would be good. When we have, yes.
Any questions?
And in this, just so you know, Angela, I do have your name and a contact number in here for you. Because
I saw that.
The board has to all be on,
I saw that.
so,
That's fine. Thank you.
sure.
Anything else?
Somebody give Cody a motion to approve it and he can sign it.
So a motion would be in order for the chair of the select board to sign the local emergency management plan.
So moved. Seconded.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. That's on.
Just buzzing.
Should I call, should I, text Liam and see if we can get them there with faster?
Sorry,
As far as the crush for
were they coming here in person or are they gonna zoom in or?
I think Liam was gonna be.
No, I mean, one of these next ones is gonna be quite a lengthy discussion.
Okay,
But we've got a couple smaller ones we can add, so I'm not too worried about it.
no, okay.
Did you have more, Cody? Oh, it's on the back side.
Yeah, double sided.
Yep, gotcha. Thank you.
Jessica, moving on to open meeting law, follow-up supplement for committees. Are you there, Jessica? I assume she's leading it, or,
Well, we'll see if Ledger's
okay,
gonna, cooperate or if,
I can also,
there she is.
Hi.
hey, buddy. You look happy. One of the two.
All dolled up.
Got dressed up to come to the meeting?
So I came up with a policy. I did have Jim Barlow look it over, and he added what he thought was needed for legal purposes, for it to hold like some value. The only thing I thought of last minute, unfortunately, was there's nothing in there about consequence. So that's the only thing that is not outlined in there. So I don't know if that's something that you guys want to handle, like on the policy itself, or in a different situation. I didn't know if it was going to follow through with, like, you know, if they asked for appropriations, or if they did hand in their agenda a little bit late, if it was just going to determine if they were going to be able to make decisions at that agenda. Like, that's that's the only thing that I thought of that I didn't put in there.
Yeah, that's sticky wicket for sure. I know what you're trying to say, and I don't have a great answer for you. Because where I would struggle with this is most of these people are, and it's, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer, I guess. Does anybody else?
And the reason that some of the days are the way that they are in the chart is because I'm following our schedule that we have in the office. So I don't check my email on Saturdays and Sundays, unfortunately. Like that's just like the hours I'm in the office, that's when I check my email. You know, obviously if it's something urgent, then they're probably going to get a hold of the town administrator anyway. So it's not going to come through in an email. So also I can't physically post an agenda at the Cambridge post office after Saturday. Like, you know, there's only certain times that I'm able to do that. So that's why I put those in place.
I certainly have no issue with that whatsoever. I think that's fair. And it's, if anything, like most things we do, I mean, this is a great way to communicate our expectations. And I think it's better than what we've ever had before.
Yeah,
which was essentially nothing.
my thoughts were to implement this and then work with the liaisons, because there are frequent offenders, and work with the liaisons to try to reel them in. And now we have this to follow. So we're not, you know, it's very clear what the expectation is. So hoping we can work with the liaisons to get to the point where, you know, we don't need a consequence. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can honestly say that when I was on the TA search committee doing the clerking stuff, I was a frequent offender. Just
5 days comes up quick.
to
To submit your minutes.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, I think. And, yeah. Technically,
Should it be maybe 5 business days instead of 5
well,
days?
they're going by state
those
statute.
are state.
Oh, don't mess with that.
Asked that in the meeting during our training, and he was very clear. It was calendar days, because
That's
I was wondering the same thing.
Okay.
If in their calendar versus business days. But,
Does anybody feel so strongly that we need to add some type of consequence?
No, I agree that the liaison is there for a reason. They,
I think if we receive minutes that are late or agenda that's late, we just copy the liaison, a FYI or whatever. If we mind, and then we'll try to cover loss.
Jessica can contact us directly if she knows. We have
Yeah, I
a
mean,
list.
Jessica received most of them. I received some.
I would agree with you pretty strongly that there should not be consequences because they are volunteers. Life does happen. The chronicity is the problem, and I think that's education. It's like, here's why we gotta do this. And if there are people, like, I don't know who they are, but if they're my people, then bring me in and say, here, help me help you.
Yes, supposedly on the state side, they're supposed to be doing audits and things of that nature after this Act 133 was established.
Mhm.
I've heard it's happening. Hasn't happened here yet. It was. We don't want to learn hard yet. Yeah. So,
They have something in place.
yeah. At least we have this policy, at least, yeah.
So is this, are you guys, other than the consequences, are you guys happy with this policy, all of you? Town staff?
I think they created it, so yeah, I think.
So we could enact this tonight then.
Yeah, this.
You feel pretty good about it, Jessica?
What do you think about following the liaison process as far as following the education piece first and then see if there's continuing offenders, then yes, we all need to know that.
Yes.
So certainly the liaisons need to know that.
Well, let's not wait until it's a continual offender and 3-4 meetings in a row to where it's frustrating for Jessica at that point. If somebody messes up, yeah, just keep us in the loop. We are aware. Make us do our jobs.
I think that's it. Make us do our job.
You agree, Ledgy? Doesn't like
Yeah, I mean, I will let you guys know if, again, if stuff comes in late or if like we get an email about, you know, a meeting or minutes that somebody's looking for and we don't have it yet or something like that. I mean, obviously Eric's gonna know about that too, so he communicates that with you guys as well.
That's fair. So there'll be a motion in order to adopt the municipal committee agenda and minutes policy.
So moved.
Is there a second to that? Any further discussion? I guess we'll need a printed copy of this one too.
Say that in the.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, adopted. Thank you. Thank you for putting that together, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an hour past his bedtime.
Oh, dear.
Oh, I'll take the bed. Everyone's paying attention.
Alright, just making the notes.
You can feel. Not really.
We were interrupted, I think with Steve coming in, but was Sally planning on coming?
Yeah, they're coming in a little bit. I kind of want to leave for the retirement to the end. So do a relatively another quick one, hopefully. And hopefully that's them coming up to stay. Tax sale planning. I'll move on to that one. So there's a tax sale coming up this week, the 22nd, which is Thursday. So Jim Barlow emailed me and said that, in the event that nobody, puts a bid in on any of these two properties now. If nobody puts a bid in, the town has the right to put in a bid if they want to. So we would just need to have a representative, at the tax sale and to put a bid in if we so choose to. It could make sense if nobody's willing to buy it, that we put a bid in as a town to take it. It wouldn't necessarily cost us anything because it's, you know, just playing around, but, it would still follow the same rules as anybody else buying it, that we'd have to sit on it for a year. We'd have to hope that, you know, all the, you know, paperwork is there and it's legitimate and, you know, if anybody comes forward in that time, puts a claim in, you know, would be all that to deal with as well. But after a year and assuming everything goes through and the paperwork and the deed and everything's clean, we could sell the property, ourselves for any amount of money that we want this thing. Similar to the land up on Smuggler's View that, I think someone here maybe bought.
Yes.
That was a similar deal where the town acquired some property that didn't get a bid on that tax sale, I assume. And then we sold it a few years later for money. So, that is our prerogative if we would like, if this board would like. I can
And
tell you,
occupied properties?
one is vacant land and one is a house, but I don't know if anybody's living there. I don't think
Oh,
so, but I don't know. But if there was somebody living there, there would likely be an eviction process
Okay.
involved. But not until we own the property outright, or whoever. owns the
Sure.
property. We don't have to put a bid in either. If it doesn't, if nobody requires it, then it just kind of, we're in the same boat we were. Presently. That being said, I am not available to be here Thursday to do that.
What time do you?
What time is it? 10?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. Peter or, you know, Angela, would you be here potentially, or?
I could be.
Yeah. And again, if somebody else puts a bid in, we don't have to do anything.
And the bids come that day at that time.
And there's, my understanding, talking to Jim, it's basically an auction. He said it's the least entertaining, or he is the least entertaining auctioneer in the world. But it's essentially, you know, do I have a bid? The starting bid is the taxes and fees owed, and it goes from there.
And we would only bid if nobody bids.
Correct. And we would just bid the minimum, whatever amount.
Well, either you or I.
Would you do it?
Yeah,
Could you do it?
yeah.
Awesome.
Are we interested in doing that? I think it makes sense to do it.
You do think it makes sense?
I think it makes sense. Donna, do you think it makes sense if nobody else bids on these? Linda? Donna?
So you said there's two, but there's three on this list.
Two, so
Which two is it?
the, it's Olympia.
That one's on there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Then the other one is Barry Carlton.
so the little field is off the table.
It's paid. Yeah.
Those are the two.
Donna, what do you think?
I think they're gonna do that on. I think there was quite a lot of interest in both of them. It's like,
Well, I think we should have a backup plan just in case,
I
but
just need to be here to listen.
if nobody puts a bid in, raise your hand. So, I don't know, I don't know if Jim told me whether we needed a motion for this, but I would probably just make a motion just to,
Emails right there and there's to Peter.
I could also look in my email, see,
You remember? Off the top of your head?
It doesn't.
oh, it doesn't say, it's in,
Side.
but.
Can't go around anymore for
I just don't know.
Yeah, so there'd be a motion on the table for the town of Cambridge. Peter, you're gonna do it?
Yes.
So we'll give Peter the authority to put a bid in.
How much am I bidding? Nothing?
For the, whatever the minimum bid amount is.
We'll have the,
Oh, those are the
Those are the
bids.
starting bid.
Yeah. And Jim will have them there at the thing, but, to authorize Peter to put in a minimum bid for the two tax sale properties at the tax sale later this week. In those amounts.
Seconded. So we do not bid against anybody.
No.
We are the last bidder for the minimum bid.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Awesome. Good evening.
That was fun.
Yeah. Exhilarating. So, yeah, that's your guys' topic. If you're so inclined, we're a little ahead of schedule. Yeah.
Works for me.
I'm running a little early, because
Yeah.
you could either be. Yeah.
We still got a little bit to go. But you're more than welcome to jump in, to the table here too, if you want.
Is Gina Legal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, she's here.
Okay, I'm Sally Laughlin, the chair of your town committee on the Crush Preserve. I think Bob Heiser from the Vermont Land Trust primarily also want to update you on what's going on. It's nice to see you all. So I'm speaking for our town Crush Preserve Committee. The other members are Jane Porter, who's away, that's why she's not here tonight. Liam, Holly Ferris, that Gina Little was on there, Neil Spear and Mary Fiddler, who's awarded. And I want to say, we really appreciate being appointed to this committee and being responsible for to reporting to the town of these. Crush Preserve, since it was set up in 2022, it's really become a treasured thing for our town. It's used so much. 10 to a dozen people a day walking it. Liam did a count with a people counter that the Humboldt County Planning Commission loaned to us, and some 4,000 people are walking the trails, and a lot of them are local. It's fun when I go out. Sometimes I know people, sometimes I don't, but it's lovely to see the people out walking it. And it's such beautiful land. We're really are very fortunate to have it. And I want to tell you that our Crush Preserve Committee feels that the Borman property, which is adjacent, I guess you have the map in your pack, as you all know, just under 30 acres. It would be a really valuable addition to the preserve. It's a beautiful piece of land. It's under 30 acres, but it's a different habitat than the hemlock pine forest of the preserve. It has more hardwood forest. It has some different birds, animals, plants, and it has another waterfall of Dragon Brook, the first waterfall on Dragon Brook. It's really a beautiful piece of land, and we and the Preserve Committee feels it would be a very valuable addition if it's possible. And steps on that, and just a bit of history, which some of you may remember. I don't know if all of you would, but when we set up the preserve in 2021, 2022, the town did try to purchase that property. Seth Johnson from the Humboldt County Planning Commission wrote a grant proposal that the town submitted. It was an upland forest grant, and we didn't get it. So at that point, we dropped it. We had enough to do to raise the money, rest of the money for the preserve and set up the nature trails and so forth. But at this point, it looks like there's a possibility that the Vermont Land Trust Vermont Land Trust sees potential in moving ahead now. So we wanted to update you on where we are. And Bob Heiser, as most of you know, was a person from the Land Trust to help guide through the Crush Nature Preserve, and he can fill you in on what's happening and bit of background.
Great. Oh, good to see you, everybody, and happy to just give an update. So we worked with the landowner to get an appraisal. So we split the cost of an appraisal with the landowner. And Heidi and Peter Borman have agreed. So they had put the land on the market and then pulled it off, and were willing to get an appraisal. And now we have the appraisal in, and they're willing to kind of keep it off the market for the time it would take for the town to, and, partnering with the Vermont Land Trust and the Friends to put the legal work and raise the money to purchase that land if that's something the town would want to do. And so we're working with them right now to get a written agreement, so we're all clear on what that would look like to secure it, so that the town could consider it, and if so, move forward and acquire it. I do think it would be attractive for state funding, giving the connectivity to the Crush Preserve, just how popular the Crush Preserve has become, and the way it connects to the village of Cambridge land. So it would create this stretch of public land that would be 200 acres if you count state land, town land, village land. It would be an impressive stretch of forest land that was connected. So I think it would be possible with largely funds coming from grants and private fundraising to acquire that as an addition to the town land. As I said, we're working on a written agreement. I think that's coming together, and the landowners feel like it would be a very exciting outcome. So happy to answer any questions. I do have maps if anyone wants to take one.
No, I'll take a paper.
Yeah, okay. It's anyone else? Okay.
Questions from the board? I'll start. So I guess, what is the long-term goal as far as the ideal acquisition, I guess, and how would that work? What do you guys see that as?
What would we do if we owned the land?
Well, how to get the land?
Oh, I should have said that the trail, on the current preserve, which is an old woods road, that when you come up the hills, the trail goes down to the Sandball Meadow. Well, if you go the other way, it goes directly into the Borman land. So in terms of trails, it would be quite easy to connect and then have a loop trail there. I should say that our thought would not be to have any public access to the current road into the Borman land. That would just be for if trail repair needed to be done or something of that sort. It would just be walking from our current parking lot.
Was the culvert at the end of the road replaced?
There's a gigantic culvert there. Yes.
Yeah, that's,
A few years ago, I priced fixing the road and replacing that culvert for the Boardmans, and I
Which
didn't get the
road?
job.
The access road?
The access road off Bartlett Hill.
Yeah, it was a huge.
It was semi-collapsed or failed when I looked. at
right
it.
where it connects with their property.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was replaced.
Okay.
And so I think the concept, and I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, Cody, but would be that, like the Crest Preserve right now being town owned and has a conservation easement on it through Vermont Land Trust and the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, which provided some of the funding that helped cover some of the costs. The idea would just be to wrap that into by acquiring that, wrap it into that town ownership and extend the conservation easement over it. So it's back to this town land. Is that?
Well, I guess I was mainly asking, I guess I'll just be blunt. How much are you asking for the town
Yeah.
for money?
Well, the idea would
That was.
right. I mean, we are still working on the written agreement, but we would expect that the bulk of it would come from grants and fundraising. I think those funders like to see something in it from the town to know that it's important enough to the town that their money is leveraging some local money.
Mhm.
But I would see it within the context of something like the order of magnitude that's in the conservation fund already. So a commitment from the conservation fund could leverage these other funds.
I'm here to speak for the Conservation Commission. We voted twice now, using the use of those conservation reserve fund to acquire this property, and we're all in favor of it. At least some portion of that money, so the Conservation Commission is in full support.
But some of my predecessors might point out that there'd be they have knows who I'm referring to, would point out that the town's contribution would certainly be at least a lack of property tax on the it's non-developed land, so it's, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's probably fairly minor. The municipal portion anyways.
It's about $400 from my look at the information that was in the appraisal anyway from the tax.
It's almost like you knew that was gonna get brought up.
And what is the price of it? Or is that?
So the appraisal came in at $235,000. And there would be costs on top of that to do the legal work and the fundraising and the conservation easement. And so we would be working towards a larger budget to go get grants for and but that would be significantly leveraging the town contribution.
And the time frame?
You know, we're hoping that they give us a little over a year, a year and a half or something like that, because we will need to go for grants. It's nice to have a full year cycle to get different grant applications
When you
in.
say they, you mean the Bormans?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they know that that's the general
It's a
timeframe,
process.
but we're hopefully gonna have a written agreement soon and we'll know all those exact details.
Danny, do you have a question?
The one I was gonna ask you, yes, I was curious what the appraisal was. But not knowing where this is gonna go, is this something that we would approach the town a town meeting vote. Instead of us. We don't know.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, there's rules on land acquisition that we'd have to follow, and I don't know those are off the top of my head, but. I'm not entitled, my next question was gonna be, what is the ask as of right today? Or is there no ask? This is more of a FYI, we're looking into this.
Yeah, this is, we want to make sure you're all informed as we're having these conversations, and I know there have been conversations about this land before, but now we have the appraisal and, but if we get a written agreement and,
There
And
could
we-
be a future ask.
yeah, then we would come in at some point and hope that, if there's support for either a grant, that there would be a letter of support, and at some point we'd want a memorandum of understanding to say, this is how we see this moving forward. If we're gonna spend a lot of effort to go raise these funds, and, the funders will want to know that the town is supportive, and that there would be an aspect.
Did that answer your question, Danny, or did you have a follow-up? Sorry.
I have a follow-up question, isn't necessarily, it's totally off topic. Is there a proposed trail route in there that you're thinking?
Straight up the current trail, in the preserve, and come up the hill to the preserve from the parking lot.
Yeah.
And you turn right to go down to what the Soundville area. Or you turn, you go around the hill and down along Dragon Brook. But there's a wood road that you encounter right there at the top of the hill, and it would be that wood road going straight back.
Taking you up to where the old sugar house was?
Yes.
Yes,
So
and then,
if you take the left, there's a gate panel that stops people wandering down the work road. So you go to the stand where you
yes,
have to make a hard left. At that point, there's a panel fence in place that blocks off access to one of the.
Correct.
If you follow that all around, you just follow that route, it brings you right down towards Stern Lane to Barwood Hill. Past the Wagner property,
okay,
all right, so you could drive a tractor down there without obstruction.
I'm familiar with the road.
Okay.
My house is the end of
Yes.
LeBaron or Carpenter's Meadow there.
Right.
So I just was curious because in the beginning of the Crush Preserve, I had a lot of people that wanted to walk right up across the meadow and onto my land. And my dog had more of an issue than I did. But I just was curious where the proposed trail was, because that pretty much will go in the center of that parcel is what you're thinking. But then we'll
Yes.
loop back.
It would be a loop, probably, I can come back the same way down the interior of Woods Road, so.
But come down more where the access road is currently, correct?
Other than the wood, there's no proposed trails. As you obviously familiar, there's plenty of wood roads in there.
Mhm.
Could easily be flagged, blazed as routes for people to. You would obviously work with the abutters to resolve any issues with the trails. Where we come down by Pine Tree Lane, for example, where it runs along the state forest. If we put a sign about 200 feet within the property line, says you are approaching the property boundary, and don't pass this. And we got a couple of those signs on the.
Yeah, I think once the signage finally got in on the original, it was.
Yeah, it was just the window, before we had the
Correct.
trail cut, people couldn't see whether, and I had a fair number of people ending up in my driveway, looking totally baffled and saying, where's the parking lot? Where's my car? And they, well, they just had come straight down through the sample and ended up in my driveway, and we're very confused. So now that we've got the signs up and now the trails are well laid out and they're all blazed and marked.
We put a fair effort into direction. So, local is the only thing, but I walk through that. I find people from all over the country. They look for walk, they're interested in staying in Stowe. They look for walks. Google Maps shows them the Cruise Preserve. And I'm running into people from Washington and Oregon who have no idea which way they're facing.
And they just drove their tractor trailer through the notch to get here.
First one, yesterday, I can't believe it.
No.
Oh,
That was just a personal question from my side.
well,
so.
it's a very good point, Dan. I mean, it wasn't really difficult at first before we got the trail laid out and mowed and so forth. People really didn't know where to go. I'm glad you pointed that out and we got it straightened out.
Can I put a footnote in? I mean, you put aside, your main camel is your neighbor there, Donna? We put sign, what I thought was a good way of saying, and he called me up after a couple of years and said, can we move that sign? Please put the sign back again. And we're very cognizant of, intruding on the neighbors.
Especially when you say you meet people from all over the.
All, and they have no idea where.
Mhm. You can tell when they get out of their cars, they have no idea where they're walking to. Some of them.
Any other questions? from board members? Okay.
So we'll come back and get more information.
Sounds good.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is this something that interests you? I mean, do you think this is a good thing to do?
I'm absolutely in favor of this.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it.
Hesitantly, yes.
Okay.
From my own personal aspect. Public aspect, I could see it being beneficial.
These say you don't have a development of 20 houses in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, okay, well, then
There
I'll
we go.
speak up there.
Can I,
I will say, to me, it's a little disappointing that you know, with obviously lots of talk about housing and floodplains and stuff. The site has its access challenges, as I found out when I priced the driveway originally. And I clearly didn't get the job. But, so that's 100% has its challenges. How I have a, rental business now, my wife and I, and it's the amount of available land to develop is, you see, the easy ones have all been taken and have been for a long time. So they are getting increasingly more. So I'm not saying I'm necessarily against this. It's just something to keep in the back of all of our minds as we move, you know, through life here in this town. That it's going to be a conversation. It's a conversation everywhere in the state. And it's something we just need to always be thinking of with every decision we make.
Housing.
Housing, sorry, if I wasn't clear, housing, yes.
Got it.
if I can ask too, is there is Liam gonna lay out or are you going to hire the same young lady that did trail development? And is there a written or oral agreement with the village of Cambridge for the use of the village of Cambridge's property for trail?
A very good question, because there is 100 acres there that the village will get
Why
property.
would you do this and not?
Well, Jean is still on there. We have no formal arrangement with the village and are not, we understand and that trails might be possible, as long as we can find a place near the wellhead, but there's nothing agreed
What
on
is the
that.
setback on?
Well,
Right now, we're just talking about the dual foreman,
yeah,
30 acres, so.
we'll just be very, very careful on that because there's a lot of rules regarding.
Yeah, well, that's what I was asking, what the setback was.
When we went to the village trustees a few years ago. We went to the village trustees a few years ago to float the idea. And it was generally favorably received. They were open to access. Now, whether that is a built trail, or whether it's just a flagged route, or whether it's bushwhacking, all remains to be seen. And it was several years ago, so yes, we absolutely will go back and we've got something concrete to talk about.
Yeah.
But this is the first point
Yeah.
in this, that we've had some concrete to talk about, so we thought it was appropriate for Rob to come in and just brief you on what we're thinking about and what we're working towards. There's nothing concrete yet.
Yeah, and the Cambridge Village properties, that's a whole separate topic.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a village property, so it's, but in terms of the trail and trail building, Peter, it should be pretty easy, because this is all pretty flat land with old wood roads going through. It's not anything like the challenge we had to figure out how we're gonna get up that hill and around the corner.
Yes, it's beautiful.
It's very,
It's a beautiful piece of land.
And just from my, I support this first step absolutely, but I would love to see you start to negotiate it with the village sooner than later. I've run into, Laird and I have run into, struggles with thinking we had something in place and it didn't turn out to be.
And we are talking to them.
That's very, very good advice. And the other thing, the other aspect in terms of, we talk much about the connectivity. It's a part of the, state of Vermont primary connectivity blocks of land, forested land that join together that makes the whole path up to Canada. And the fact that this would be part of that connectivity, that this 30 acres, whether we had trails going onto any other land, under village land, and now it's still the value to the connectivity and to the environment of having an unbroken area where plants and animals could go would still exist.
Well, I don't wanna derail the conversation too much, but
Thank you very
Yes.
much. It's good.
talk about the village another time.
Sounds like a good of it. Thank you, Cody.
No problem. No, we still got a couple other items to talk about. Thank, yes, please keep us informed and, yeah, we can talk about this another day.
Back in a few months when we have an agreement and so forth. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Thanks for coming in. We'll see you at your next meeting, hopefully.
Won't have to use picklines as much in this trail.
So from woods trails to retirement plans, it's a great transition. Yeah,
That's what you do when you retire.
Recommend.
yeah,
I
I don't know that I would call you retired.
do what I wanna do, when I
Oh,
wanna do.
okay, sure.
Thank you very
Or
much.
did they know that I'm
Thank you.
retired?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just who you are. What did Mark say? You're relevant.
Still relevant.
You're still relevant. Yeah, that's right.
Have a good night, all.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Buzan.
You can't retire.
No, not yet. So this started about a year ago. We had an employee that had previously had a Vermont state pension plan. And that information circled through the highway department and pushed the conversation for me to investigate it. So over the past 12 months, I spent a fair amount of time digging deep into Beamers, and we did have Beamers come in and speak to the employees and try to answer some specific questions on how this would fit into each individual employee's needs or goals. And it certainly isn't a one size fits all plan for every employee. Donna, who has 20 years in, if we had Beamers when she was first hired, she would be waving goodbye. She'd be retired and have a pension. However, coming into the plan 20 years doesn't really benefit her slightly. It benefits the younger employees or the employees who have some vested time from other jobs. But that isn't to say, it's not attractive to other employees as well. So spent a lot of my own time in the last year understanding Beamers, looking into past select board minutes and what we talked about years ago before we adopted our current 401A and 457B compensation or deferred compensation retirement plans. Talked to some of the former select board members about Beamers and their thoughts. I've talked to a lot of other towns regarding Beamers. Talked to a lot of other town employees to try to get a general consensus of why benefits, pros, cons. And it's pretty clear if you're in the plan and always have been, it's great. The challenge for us is getting into that plan, if we so choose, and making it work for everyone. So that's where the complication really sets in. I wouldn't, unless Donna has a lot more money stored away than we all know about, it's not gonna work for Donna to buy her time into the Beamer's plan. It's not physically feasible, honestly. And if it was, then she honestly could retire. So it doesn't benefit her at all. An employee that's been here 8 or 9 years or more, to buy the time out is really expensive.
What does that mean? You have to,
So you can, as long as you're a municipal employee, you can buy in time into the Beamers. So,
you take your own cash
yeah,
and you say, I $10,000, $20,000, $100,000, whatever. I want to get into this retirement plan. I'm gonna stay in this job another 20 years and then I'll be golden.
so I'll use myself for an example.
Okay.
I'll have 7 years vested. Technically, if I take the start time to now.
Yep.
That I could buy in to the 20-year pension plan. So I could buy in my first 7 years, even though we weren't a member of Beamers until potentially this year. I could buy that time. I mean, that time for me would be about $100,000. So that is possible. And then to complete your 20-year term, I'd have to work 13 more to complete my term, and then I can collect on my pension. So for me, am I gonna be able to afford 8 years? So I'll be able to maybe sometime. But
you can still retire in 20 years from now if we started this today.
20 years from now, yeah. Yeah, I'll be retirement age by then. Anyway, it's like,
All
it's like,
those in favor?
Yeah.
But you don't,
That easy.
so what I'm trying to get at, and I'm just trying to say. It's, we have a couple younger employees in their 20s. This is a home run for them because, in 20 years, they're gonna be in their 40s. And they're gonna have a 20-year plan. Well, right, great. Myself and a couple other employees who are in their 40s and 50s. And I think we'd be better off to stay with the plan we're at. I'm like right on the cusp of it making sense financially. So. And if you talk to Mission Square. They have a lot of good resources to use to build yourself your own pension. I use that word loosely, but you can build yourself a 20-year plan.
A retirement.
If that's what you want.
Okay.
So. However, there is a desire. Over 50% of the current highway department is certainly in favor of a pension plan. So I told them that I would do all my homework, and I feel like I did. And I'm here to present the board. I put in the packet the current existing rates. The 20-year is for the employee more favorable than obviously a 30 for obvious reasons, other than the contributions. And like I said, the sticky part is it's not one shoe fits all. So I feel like we would almost have to keep for a period of time our existing retirement plan for the employees who, like, it would be a kind of an undue hardship to cut their plan short and then make them contribute to this pension plan that they're never going to draw from. So. So that's part one of my disclaimer going forward. Part two is this Beamer's plan is more money. And how we would divide up between town and employees, I have some ideas, but regardless, it's gonna cost either the employee more or the employer more or both. Currently, the town matches up to 6%. As you can see, we're looking at, about 9.5 on the,
And that's the
that's the group.
401 and the 457 combined.
Combined is 6%.
And remind me again, those, the two, cause one is like, remind me what the rates are for each one, please.
It's 3% each. So we
So
have,
one is a 3%, like,
one is 3% match up to 3% match.
Yeah.
And then one is 3% strap flat. That's your max. That's all we get. Whether you want to or not.
and one of them though, we have some flexibility to adjust if we wanted to.
Yes.
And that's that first one.
The 401. So that's good. The Group B plan, which I believe actually is the Group C plan is what you want, the 20-year plan. So if you go down to Group C,
Can you
employee,
explain the differences between those?
yeah, so Group A through D is basically years of service. So you get, there's service credits, years of service calculations. Group C is the one size fits all for 20 years of service. That's the plan. Employer contribution is 8.75%. Employee contribution is 11.5. So I'd explain that is a significant jump from what some of them are paying. Some, I'm not certain are paying anything. So I mean, that's gonna be.
Meaning the employee.
Yes.
They're just not matching their.
You don't have to, so
Which is fine.
we give 3% on one plan regardless.
Yep.
And
Everyone gets it.
everyone gets it. That's our retirement. And then if you want to join in the second 401(a) plan, you can go up to 3% match. You can do your IRS limit if you'd like, but
You 20%.
yeah, so the town will go.
Yeah.
So,
So we're currently paying 6 out of our pocket.
6 out of,
Towns.
yeah, I think there's 4 employees. Maybe 5. So some of us, yeah, are using more, but the third thing that I have to mention, and anyone listening to the minutes of an employee, I'm sorry, but I have to mention this to the board, is the validity of the Beamer's pension program plan. And if you look back in the minutes, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. That was one of the main concerns, is that the plan isn't gonna be sustainable in the long run. And it has been bailed out by ARPA funds in the last few years. I can't see the state letting a pension plan fall through, but that is something I need to mention, that that has been a past board's concern, and I've spoke to I wish I knew how many people, and that seems to always come up from a person who has a financial background, especially, they're like, just so you know, and then they all say the same thing.
And once we're in it,
And that's part D of my thing is, there is no turning back. If we can dip our toe in. So for instance, we can say only the highway foreman is gonna have yours. But once we do that, the highway foreman always has the, we can't back out. There is no, it is, and I asked
That's a
her,
little scary.
it's a lot scary in some instances. That's why they offer this. You can just do certain titles. So you'd have to get creative, I think, if we were to decide to do something, and then, like, I don't think you could, to be honest, but. So that is the last part I have to share, but I realize it's a lot of information. It does take a fair amount of time to get into the Beamer's program. You do have employees interested, like I mentioned, and you do have an employee that has a timeline where he would lose his vested from his previous employer. Not trying to rush, but I'm just giving you information.
What are the parameters?
Yeah, private parameters is a good way to put it. I think the best way to, I mean, I just kind of spewed a lot of information real quick, but
Before you offer any opinions, can we ask some more questions?
I wasn't even gonna.
Okay.
So, question away.
So hearing some of the beginning stuff about the buy-ins, what does the start look like? So you kind of made it sound like you don't necessarily have to buy in if you don't want to.
You don't need to buy in immediately. You have up to, I believe, 5 years to buy in. Because you're not vested for 5 years in the pension.
Right.
So I think you have that entire time. And I'm embarrassed, I don't know that more clearly, but I believe it's the full 5 years.
I think you're right.
But the longer you wait, the more expensive it is to buy in.
But you would have to buy in.
You don't have to.
Oh,
If I decided that I'm not gonna buy in any of my time, then like Dan said, I have these 20 years.
She's locked in for 20
I'm
years.
locked in for 20 pension. I would be locked in for 20, but I have, if I wanna get my pension, I can just make it.
okay.
His first 7,
Yes.
if he's 30.
So it doesn't travel with you.
Only if, so if I were to go to another municipality and I had 7 years
Sure, I get that.
in a Beamer's plan,
But if you went to work for GW Tetro or something, you're done. That's it.
Yeah.
Every penny that is.
you
not
get
right.
it, you can get a payout,
Oh, you can.
but it will not be a pension payout. It'll be a lump sum.
And you
Service credit
And
payment.
you
I think
pay
that-
tax on that?
And I think there's a schedule of like what the penalties are, like for
Yes.
withdrawing early essentially, or
Yeah.
how many years
And if
you
you,
had.
yeah, exactly. If you, before 55 years old, you pay a
Penalty.
yeah,
federal.
it's just like a retirement plan.
But so like the group C, I don't know if that's a plan or what you want to call it, but the group C. So if this goes active and the employee, regardless of whether they choose to buy in or not,
Mhm.
I mean, that those percentages there are effective as soon as that's,
The second we say,
yeah.
yes,
So for any employee who's, for any employee currently who's only putting in 3% to get the full match is gonna go, essentially is gonna have another 8.5% pulled out of their paycheck every week to go into that.
so if we have an employee who's only taking the 3% from the town, they're gonna have an 8 3/4% discount from his paycheck. I mean, it's for the great good of,
No, employee, right? So it'd be 11.5.
sorry, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
So 11.5%.
Yeah.
Yes, you're good. Sorry.
Okay.
And-
Yeah, that's
Question.
good.
Okay. So the current plan follows you wherever you go. You are investing in your own.
Current plan is very much like any traditional 401k or a,
So the 401k doesn't apply to municipal employees, so it's a 401b or.
Okay,
that's fine.
Or
Yeah.
401a.
Different name, different
different name,
numbers.
yeah, it's the same thing.
But you can go anywhere in the country, the world, and that money is yours. It goes with you,
Right, that account stays with you, and obviously there are withdrawal penalties.
Sure,
just like
say you just
anything.
let it ride.
The way the Beamer's plan works, like for instance, this employee I'm speaking of isn't fully vested. So he's at risk of losing that. This isn't fully vested.
Because he bought in from another
He
municipality.
started work a few years at another municipality.
Okay, so that's his business.
So when I worked at the construction company in New York City and they had I think it was a 5-year vesting period, I think it
Mhm.
was, but it was a 401k.
Mhm.
I left after 3 years and I think I got, I don't know, 50 or 75%. So I was 23, 24, I didn't understand any of that.
Sure.
And I just wanted to leave and move just back here. And so, years later, I figured all that out. I was like, oh, wow, I left a lot of money on the table and, shame on me for not knowing that at the time, but.
But it didn't follow
Price of
you.
paid.
That money didn't follow you.
Oh, no, the 75% of it did. But
Oh,
the
okay.
25% for not staying the full 5 years.
Gotcha.
Went
Yeah,
back
that
to
was
the
what they
employer.
built in to keep you.
Yes.
And then you said, I can forfeit 25%. I'm going home.
And we're 100% vested as soon as you. Or, is it the probationary period or is it?
It's the probationary period.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have a vesting period with our current plan.
Yeah, essentially, that's correct.
But do people understand they have to stay in the type of work they're in? They have to work for a municipality within this state.
Municipality or state government, yeah.
And they have to have this one.
They have, I mean, the states, I mean, there's, so
You could work for B-Trans and.
the V-Trans or some, like a municipality that has this, not every town has it. Case-
Right, because that's what that guy's problem is right now. We don't.
Right,
Okay.
I'm certain, yeah,
So do they understand that? They get it? Like, you're locking yourselves in, boys.
But that is employee, that can't go into either one of these other options that we have. Criminal.
so he, because he's not vested, he's not gonna lose that. He'll get a very small portion of that credit, service credit that he has, and then he's gonna lose out on his vested 3 years, or his unvested 3 years term.
That's all we're there for.
Yeah. It's 2 or 3, but it isn't.
Because with this person, do we need to be in executive session to really talk about?
Well, I would try to keep it as general as possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to just be, just a generality, but, not trying to single one person out.
No, yeah.
It was a request by a group of employees and I think we owe it to them to consider it. So, okay. I will say from my perspective, being the only one who was here when we had this discussion, historically, like when I started on this board, there was no retirement plan whatsoever at all. The retirement plan, if you will, was a bonus check at the end of the year and, at Christmas time, and it was just, we're doing a one-time bonus as a, retirement.
And that was 6 years ago.
Yes. And it was in that 2019, 2020-ish range.
We started
Marguerite was here.
2021, the end of 2021.
So, but I think it was those years leading up to it, because it took us it was a good year. She
Oh, yeah.
did a lot of legwork.
And a lot of the information I gained is from Marguerite's.
Yeah.
She can take notes.
And she looked at all of this and presented this. The select board member you're referring to is likely George. George was a very big opponent to Beamers and recommended very strongly not to go in there. And, citing the volatility thing, which is before COVID. So the whole ARPA funds have been put in there. The not being able to get out, meaning less flexibility. We went in with the two fours here, the 401 and 457. To give, one was fixed, it was capped at the 3%, which now you say that, I remember. So that was capped, we can't change that one, but we added the additional 401B.
Yeah, 457B.
So we added the second one to add more flexibility, so it gives both the employee and the employer a little bit of wiggle room so that we could add some percentages. And I think if I recall, we settled in on the 6%, thinking that seemed like a industry average, so to speak, or at least in my experience, 6% seems fairly generous for 401k. That's a thing. Not sure what your guys' experience has been, but.
And then what did you do for those people who had been here 15 or 20 years? Nothing, everybody came in and.
Well, they didn't have anything before, because we were just doing, the opinion of the board at that time was it was a disservice to just be handing them a check at the end of the year. That it was not a good long-term investment for them. Yes, a short-term check, obviously, everyone's happy to get money.
Right.
But ultimately, the 22-year-olds aren't thinking like that. They want that check, obviously. But in reality, this is a
Of
much
course.
better tool for them in the absolute long run. And we wanted to do better by them for setting them up for success later.
Okay.
Most of those people are not here anymore.
Sure.
Coincidentally enough.
Yeah.
But, that was part of our reasoning at that time. So I think the flip side of this coin could be, we could also consider changing some of the rates in our current options that we have. That's a possibility if we decide that this is not the route we want to go to. So that's always an option for us.
Yep.
I will say, before all this, I still think a lot about our discussions back then. My opinion really hasn't changed a lot. I see a lot of risk. I can understand that frustration. I had some of that frustration myself by leaving early and not having 100% vested.
Mhm.
Can't do much about it now, but I don't know that it's a hard thing to really. Some people have their mind made up, and it's hard to change their, if they've already made a decision in their head, it's hard
Sure.
to change. And I'm trying to be as open-minded as I can about this, because I've honestly already had an opinion formed for a number of years. Haven't heard anything different. I mean, obviously the program's been around for a long time and it hasn't really changed that much.
As far as the program, it's like the exact same program as when we spoke about it back in 2020.
Yeah.
The only thing that's changed is the contribution rates, which
we have zero control over
we
whatsoever.
have, that's correct.
There's more, my fear is also the more and more, obviously the state employees are the biggest contributor to this. The more and more of those state employees who retire can be withdrawing on it, which means in essence, they need more people to join, to contribute, to pay for the people who are leaving. And that's always been scary to me.
Mhm.
And that was one of George's biggest concerns as well.
Jeff Cosworth and I had lengthy discussion about it, and I don't believe he was on the board then, and he had a lot of ideas on retirement plans, and gave me a lot of good insight on where to look and how to look at things. And I mean, even on a personal level, it changed, how I will invest.
With the one exception, I don't know that we're gonna be able to fix that one with this, but for any other employee, anybody could increase their contributions as much as they could bump it up, their contributions to 11.5% right now.
I'm not certain what the IRS limit is, but yeah, you can bump it up to that.
Right, regardless, yeah. Obviously, there's a tax factor there
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
That's pre-tax dollars.
it's pre-tax. I want to say they increased it in the last year or so. And I forget what that is, but it's a lot.
The only thing
It's
they
high,
wouldn't,
yeah.
the only thing they wouldn't be getting is that they'd be losing out potentially 5.75% of the
Service credit
our match, the town.
or that match, yes.
Yeah.
So this game is the only option that the state offers and allows in travel.
Yeah.
I mean, private companies, obviously, I don't know what other towns, I know Marguerite reached out to a bunch of towns to ask what they, poll them, what they were using. She had spreadsheets of that data. I don't remember, but.
So I reached back out based on her notes, just to see, hey, it's been 5 years, what do you think of it? And I mean, they all said the same thing, obviously, they're all into it, we can't leave, but I shouldn't say all, a majority of them said it was a really good tool for bringing employees.
Yeah.
Into the department. And some of them, I wouldn't say a majority, went as far as saying it was a good method to retain employees. So anecdotally, I guess there's some value there.
I will say one of the negatives that was brought up when we decided to go this way was that it was two retirement accounts to track on, you know, your guys' side of the wall here. I don't know if that's been an issue at all, or if that's straightforward, or.
I would suggest that there is a. Yeah. Yeah,
But Mark. Was-
So when
was They just,
So when I do the check in AP, then I go on Mission Square and I tell them how much to apply to the 457 and how much to apply to the 401A. So it's all kind of together in a way.
it's not like it's not a burden or anything from your perspective, right? It's,
Not in my opinion, not what I do in terms of the AP and supplying them with the information of how much goes to each account for each employee.
so one thing the state did mention is that there is some more like work conduct. Work stuff. So
as far as setup or just daily
set up
or weekly
weekly
transactions.
transactions and yeah. So.
I don't know how, I guess what I started to say was, you know, obviously with a 401k, like in my industry, the private sector, right? I can always transfer those funds into a different 401k account, and
We could do that
as John Hancock or
Yeah.
whatever the entity. So, and that's these 457s and 401s, it's similar or same.
Yep. You have your own portfolio basically,
Yeah.
and everybody gets a statement and you can.
Yeah.
You can do that, Nathan.
Cause I don't remember now all the different ones, but we had John Hancock and I switched to Vanguard. I think my new employer has a census or something like that. So it follows me around. So it's kind of in the same regard that Beamer's program, like if that's one of the driving factors, you could work for a couple different places that all have it. And it follows you around, so to speak. And there is that same opportunity.
Yeah.
With the other plans.
Yeah, that employee that sparked this conversation, I mean, that was one of the reasons he left, was that, well, I gotta keep mine. I think he had 2 or 3 more years ago,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, so he went for another place with a pension plan, and it was apparently worth it. It was driving a fair distance to get there. So,
What if I ask the opinion of the other 2 town employees that are in the room, or through all 3, I guess? You have 2 or Jessica have any thoughts?
I guess I'm told.
You either. Yeah,
Yeah, not another 20 years, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna benefit. And I benefit more with what we have now. Because I can regulate how much I can put in. And I know at the end, it's still gonna be mine, I'm not gonna lose it.
yeah.
So that,
And that's part of what I was saying earlier, like, we would have to maybe spend both, because for Linda, and I definitely for Don specifically, initially, I was thinking that it would be a little bit more feasible for Donna to maybe buy some time back, because I mean, she did work here for 18 or 19 years without a retirement plan, so she doesn't have a whole lot of retirement, but that just doesn't. It just doesn't, make sense for her, but, and there is the option of saying, you know, we don't have to, not every employee can do small groups, but we are locked in to whoever we put into that position remains a Bidmer's position, and then you have to run the risk that, well, you gave it to him, and then, so
I'd be very fair. I'd be very afraid of equity discussions.
that would be a hard
Thing for you.
sell to
Other board members.
is that an option? Like, here's your 3 options. You can do this plan, you can do this plan, or you can do this plan. But whatever plan you pick, you're in it.
Well, then they're picking the plan for that next person in perpetuity.
Oh, so it's the role, not the individual. Oh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, if we decided, say for instance, the highway foreman were to have it. And at the end of his, he decides he leaves or whatever, and we could pull back. That's a little bit more flexibility, but now it's that position,
Also, one more plan that they have to manage.
and then it's.
Yeah, that's a drag, but
That's as well, but yeah, but. For
okay, no.
the end of Cambridge time, yeah, that Beamer's plan sticks with that position. So,
I mean, could you do something with what we already have? I mean, if you're looking at increasing, something to get into this.
and that's one thing Jeff was talking to me about, Jeff Coslet, and he had some ideas, just, just pretty knowledgeable about that, and you can make it, I mean, for me specifically, obviously, I don't know everyone's individual financial retirement plans, but for myself, that's like, what he's saying would work.
You can increase your percentages.
Yeah, you can,
Almost as well.
yeah, in my
Because
position.
Currently.
you're gonna have it.
In my position, and I'm not, and I just don't want to speak for everyone, I'm just, me specifically, that it does work, and I know at least a couple other employees are around my age, and I think it would be.
I think if I remember right, even, let's just say 10 years from now, something happened where you couldn't afford that, you could drop that down some too, for a period of time, your percentage and what you currently have.
Yep.
It's a lot more flexibility there than what
Oh, yeah, you can do
I
it.
thought there was a whole lot more here.
Right, and not knowing too what the state could do with this,
What's gonna happen?
what's gonna happen, because if it happens, what I went through with college, it doesn't take long for that to change.
They
Again,
recently had even our funds bail out, bail them out of this.
what's that?
They've used ARPA funds to bail themselves out of some of this.
That's how they became,
Solvent again.
solvent again. And they're quickly going back under,
It's just a numbers game at some point.
I think you're right. Number of state employees as they retire is somehow something's gonna carry.
yeah, I'm not,
That's why the percentages keep, it's going down.
I'm not trying to sway one side or the other, I'm just trying to write information, but it's a lot to think about, and I say a year, it's been a year.
I've heard a lot going on in the state, yeah, and hearing different things and such, and I thought this plan was gonna be worth it. I can see where it can have its advantages, but it's not somebody my age, certainly, that's for sure.
Or mine either.
But there's not a lot of flexibility in it. I don't know, sorry. Smell them, something's gonna be.
It sort of feels like golden handcuffs to me. If you're 22 and you're starting your job, you're pretty much making a commitment to
Yeah.
get that 20-year.
The way we need to look at it is if we were going to move forward. We're very good at being, is you're investing in employees 10 years from now. For your next set of employees that may benefit from this or whatever the case may be. Because not every employee will benefit in their current position right now.
For sure.
A little over half will, so I mean, there's majority to think about. There are some strong feelings about the Beamer's plan, I will certainly, I'll speak that for the crew. I don't, I'm tired of talking about this, so.
One thing I just don't quite understand is if a person 22-year-old person did come in and join it. That 20-year plan, when they're 42, what do they get?
So,
80% of their base pay or what, what's the goal?
yeah, you don't get your full until you're 55.
Okay, so let's say you get to 55 then,
Yeah, but between 42 and 55,
13 more years.
13 more years, they can either keep paying in, but it doesn't really benefit them. You're paying in.
So what do you get at 55?
You get to retire,
You get to
you
retire.
go get another job and then you collect both.
So at 40, say for instance,
Do you get your base pay? What do you get? 80%, 60%?
so the way it would work is the 40, let's say at 22 years old.
Yep.
Because they're 42 years old, between 42 and 55, the best thing you can do is go get another job with another private sector.
Yeah, okay.
Or,
forget that.
or another pension plan and start over, you could do that and add to your existing pension plan.
What does this plan give you at 42?
At 42, it doesn't, it gives you.
No, you wait till you're
What
55.
you put
And then
in
you start
and what the
collecting.
town puts in, that 7%, whatever percentage you're putting
Yeah.
in, that all keeps going.
Sure,
Nothing,
sure.
nothing happens until
It
you
isn't
turn
that
55.
that amount.
Then
You can
what?
start,
Yeah.
you start getting collecting on that.
Well,
pension.
until you
What
55.
you get to collect.
No.
Well, this is it.
You don't get your full benefit until you're 55. You can draw from it under, but you pay
I think it's,
heavy penalty.
it's based on what you were getting paid. There's formulas in there.
And then it's the last 3 years essentially, and
So
there's,
35 years, what's AFC stand for?
Average. I think it said it on one of the.
Okay.
yeah,
You 25,000, 12,250 annually. That's one thing.
Your leaders, groups in that.
No. They're not, this is a dumb plan.
it is, like, for the 22-year-old, it is a home run because you get your pension plus, you still need to work.
Average final compensation.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
But like I said, a lot of people that I see are the guys that worked at V-Trans for 30 years. They retired at 55 and then they go get a job for a private consultant. They're still working every day
And they get this
and
money.
they're getting the
Oh, yeah,
pension.
yeah, okay. I get it now.
yeah, it's. So when you turn 55, you get your full pension. And then you have the choice either say I'm done, or you can like most of them report and then they go on private sector and they make a little bit of money. But between 42 and 55, you have that flexibility to either keep adding to that plan or another plan.
Do another one.
Whatever you wanna do.
I guess unless there's another question or comment, it kind of sounds like we're coming to a general consensus here.
Yeah. That's what we mean.
But I haven't heard you say too much, Sheila.
No,
Okay, Peter,
And move on.
okay. Again, I guess, I don't know that we need to make a motion because we're not changing anything.
No,
I think there's a general consensus here. I know there's gonna be some disappointment. I will say, at least speaking for myself, I am more than willing to revisit the current plans that we have. And whether the percentages, I think the match, the town offered match is 100% on the table for discussion. Whether 6% is still within the industry average, I would, my personal opinion is I would always be willing to contribute more to a retirement plan as opposed to direct salary increases. Because I think it will still benefit the employee more in the long run over time than
For sure.
the direct payment. But also the employees always have the option to contribute more than what they're also contributing right now. And if, I would argue that if any of them are willing to contribute up to 11.5%, they could and should be at least be doing the full town match right now.
Yeah.
Plus, they could be adding more.
Because what I'm understanding tonight, what our current plans that will probably benefit most of them more than.
well, majority. According to my calculations, I'm not a Beamer's expert, but a little over half would benefit from the Beamer's plan. As if you stick to the 6%, the way we have it right now. The other employees, like Donna, would heavily be disadvantaged in like all the expand because
So you're basing that calculation on numbers of service? That's
I
what,
based on our current retirement. Right now, the way it is written. For the
It's basically the
6%.
difference between a 20-year-old employee and a 40-year-old employee.
Correct.
Or
oh,
20.
it's age, not years of service.
But mostly it's age. Like myself, I'm like right on
Got it.
the tipping point where I could probably go either way to make it financially make sense. There's another thing about my age, same boat. The younger, under 40, yeah, it does make sense to build a bit for that, but,
In case of 2008, it's too big to let fail. I mean, yeah, the government could step in and make it not fail. But are they going to do that? No, why would you get involved in something that's already had to be bailed out?
Well, that was George's number one point.
well, that. Yeah,
It's valid.
it's valid, and if, honestly, I wouldn't have looked into that. Fully admit, I wouldn't have looked into that if George hadn't started that. And then I did look into it even the current day, and then Jeff, again, helped me with some of the recent stats and it's clear that, yeah, it definitely, it's, yeah, I can't deny that, it's definitely.
Well, if it's a little more palatable to the people who are thinking, I really would like that, to say, it isn't about you as an individual, it's about your position. And the board, I don't know what our consensus is, like, you got a handle on it, but I don't. But to say, we're not willing to put every new employee in that position into that program.
Well, I think if there's flexibility with, contributions. I think that may change the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's my hope, that like,
Yeah.
I don't wanna be this, or we're slamming the door shut and there's no other option. There, we have options.
Yeah.
And I would much more happily have those conversations. If they've already made their mind up and they said, you know what, I'm out. I'm surprised you said no, I'm out. What are we gonna do to change that person's mind? I don't think we're going to. However, if they say, well, what are my other options? Then we can have that conversation. Because I feel strongly that there are other options and that we can work something out.
We have, yeah, we do have options. There's no doubt about that, so.
And whether it's, you know. Yeah, and I guess what I would say, Eric, is if somebody wants to talk about it more, we can have that conversation, maybe with a different group or different individuals or something. I don't know if that's helpful, but
I think we'll see how it's.
Yeah,
but we can have it.
Like I said, I don't want this to be a vision of the door is slammed shut. It's, I think we're heading in a different direction, but there's plenty of different opportunities that could be better for everybody in the long run. And that's my hope. And it sounds kind of like that's what.
That's
you're
what,
all
yeah.
thinking too.
I like what you're saying, is we gotta give it to them in a way to say, we are thinking about you.
Right.
We are not just saying, you're crazy. No, like,
And it's a balance too, right? We owe it to the employees, right, on one hand, but we're also here to represent the town taxpayers too.
valid.
So we have to find that balance. And I think everybody in this town would agree that, you know, taking care of the employees is 100% what we're here to do.
Mhm.
Right? As long as we can maintain that balance of being fair and equitable and good to both people too, so.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this one enough. Okay. I think we've covered everything. I didn't have any other business and I didn't strike me what the other topic was anyways. Agendas for next time. I see you've got one on there for the subdivision regulations. Is that still on track, you think? Or
So they had a meeting last night. And it sounds like they want to share that with you sooner than later. And then
like me or with the board?
The board.
Okay.
You, the board, sooner than later.
Okay.
Give a 30-day period for comments and then. I'll verify, but I'm fairly certain that means. Take that off until later in the comment period. So maybe pushing it to the last meeting in June, and not the first thing.
Okay, do they need to present it here first, or it has to fall within that 30-day period, or how does that?
I don't.
It sounded like they were going to just email it over.
Yeah, that's what I understood.
But we can. I can request them to come in.
Well, I just wanna. Oh, I wanna make sure it follows the procedure, the proper procedure, and,
They do a 30-day comment period, it will.
okay,
As long as you, the board, are involved within that 30 days. Um,
maybe just because of this topic. Run it by Jim, just to 100% be sure. I have no issue, I think we have, as of at this moment, have time, that first meeting in June. So if, as long as they're ready, it falls within the right window, I'm happy to include it. But if they need 2 more weeks, I'm also not offended.
the way I understood it, I thought they were gonna send it out today. So,
I thought so too, it took me not.
yeah, I don't have it either, so.
Okay.
It was really late when they started talking about this and I was.
Well, let's, okay, let's just put that as a question mark, maybe,
I'll verify that April.
that would be the 17th. Be the next one.
Yeah.
I got an email from. What's her name? Melissa. I haven't read it yet. I'm assuming that we'll have the local housing mitigation
Yeah.
topic as well. The only other one I had on my list is I would like to talk about the business park again. That might be a 2-parter, depending if we have time, if I get some more info. But basically, I'm gonna ask you all about reducing the price for those lots. And then the second question topic is about my next project, which is not in the business park. Specifically about housing development. That is all I had on my list.
So I am taking off on, I'm not going anywhere, I'm just not going to work from this Friday through June 2nd. So that's going to throw a little bit of a wrench in our plans for how I send the packet out. What are your thoughts on,
If you send me the Word document,
that's the easy part, I guess. How do you want to handle the packet?
oh,
Or are you okay
Um,
getting the packet on Tuesday morning?
I can do it. I just gotta do it at my work computer because I don't have a PDF thing on this one. Just got the viewer.
So I'm gonna put a. My automatic reply, like select board items go to.
Yeah,
Cody,
you
or-
can do that. That's fine. As long as I can get help from somebody about posting the physical agenda.
Jessica and Donna usually really good about
Okay,
printing.
that's really the only thing I would probably need help with.
So I'll do the agenda as it sits right now and send it out on Thursday and give you the,
Yeah,
and then
you send it in a Word document anyways, don't you?
I usually send the drafts out over.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe easier.
yeah, I could do it from my work laptop. I'll just do it to a PDF. Or do you post it? No, it's PDF.
He did.
Yeah, okay. Is Jessica gonna be around? No, so I could send it to her for the website.
I'm just gonna be at home. I'm just,
Oh, okay.
try to just not look at my phone or
Nice.
email for a full week. And if I do, Jessica's probably laughing.
It's like impossible.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me actually write that down. Eric.
Yeah.
Go
They were recorded, so.
on. 5, would you say 23?
5:23 to 6:02.
Fox, Star.
Oh, Cody, I hope it doesn't rain during that time.
That was
Justin
the,
Allen.
that was the other business item, but it's not necessary. That's what it was. Yeah, I was in St. Johnsbury, headed to Maine. It was this close to turning on and coming back until my wife told me.
Keep driving.
Say all the every route.
Okay, was there, if any other topics come up, shoot me an email, shoot me a text, send a smoke signal. If we think of something. But, I'll read Melissa's email and see if she's ready for that. But I had written that down before, that the plan was that we were all gonna individually review her final draft of the local hazard mitigation and be prepared to talk about it on the 3rd. to finalize it for the first draft.
I don't know if we have to have it on the agenda, but just Larry's response to.
I think, for that, I would just say, as long as he's amenable, I would send an email to the select board, say the Trails Committee is amenable, no further actions needed.
Okay.
Don't
respond to this individually.
Yep. I think that'd be fine. All right. If there's nothing else, then there'd be a, motion to move into executive session.
Don't move.
Second,
Seconded.
What's this executive session for?
yeah,
Health officer.
health officer candidate interview or appointment. So,
Who are you inviting in?
select board, TA, town clerk. And Linda and Jessica, yeah, down staff.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are in executive session at 9:16.